Court and Public Safety meeting to order. Has the agenda.
We have one request for to add an agenda item from Chief Edmonds in regards to the purchase of a new ambulance.
Yep, not happening. Oh. Okay, we'll add that. Where do you want to put it?
Hey, Jesse.
You can either put it right at the front or you can move it to when we do the ambulance report.
Janelle here, because I know we had her at the beginning. So.
I was just in a hearing with her. She'll be in here short.
Or I mean, it's really just to submit the report, so.
Okay, well, why don't we'll start with Rod now.
Okay.
You're up. Well, I'm sorry, we didn't adopt the agenda.
That's true.
I'll make a motion to adopt agenda.
I'll second.
Changes. Okay. All those in support, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move on then. So now I guess we'll start with you.
All right, you want me to go to the podium?
Yes.
Well, good afternoon. My first attempt here as new chief for the Alpena Fire Department, so I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you just for a few short minutes. Obviously, with the current ambulance agreement that we have with you guys, we're supposed to buy 2 ambulances in that time period, one in 22 and one in 2024. 2022, not been a good year. Ambulances are hard to come by and very expensive. We have an opportunity right now. The Township of Alpena is looking at getting rid of one of their ambulances. It's a 2018 Ford E450 with only 25,000 miles on it. Comes with a power cot, power loader. Basically, the only thing it doesn't come with is our decals and an 800 megahertz radio, which we actually have one from an ambulance we're going to be decommissioning. We're looking to possibly pick this rig up if the board actually approves. What they are looking to get out of is 135,000 for that ambulance, and we'd request an additional 10,000 for the upfitting. So we look for the county board to approve up to $145,000 for the purchase and securement of that ambulance to be used for that 2022 ambulance purchase under the contract. Currently, just to give you a little history, the cost of ambulances has went up exponentially. We've been trying to shop for an ambulance. The best we can do is about a 2-year wait list. We look for one that is what they call a dealer stock. It's basically a stock truck that we have no choice how it comes. It's basically built to normal ambulance specifications. They're starting out at $265,000 plus another $70,000 for the cot. So essentially we're looking at a new ambulance that's going to cost us upwards of $335,000. So this opportunity to pick up the township rig is a pretty good option for us. We did have the city mechanic look at it. He's totally comfortable with the mechanical issue that he found under it. There is no issues. Basically, it's just got a little normal wear and tear on the tires. Brakes look to be good. Suspension, everything looks like it's good to go. So he recommended the purchase, especially since we're having a hard time finding available rigs.
How many miles did you say it had on it?
It has, it's just under 25,000.
And I just, as I was going through the stuff the other night, I noticed under our line item for, assume is that for the ambulance?
It is the equipment city contract.
Yeah.
Yep, $250,000.
250. Mine says 100.
For this year, we have $250,000 budgeted. It's 210,651,972.
Say that again, 210.
Yep, 210,651,972.
Oh, okay, I'm looking at the wrong one. I'm looking at the one, this is the money that we're probably putting in this year.
Yeah. Because we rolled the money forward from both 2022 and then the allocation from this year, so.
So we do have enough money. And when were you looking to purchase this? When were they?
As soon as it's available. So they have one of their new medical first responder trucks that's getting upfitted up in St. Ignace. I figure it could possibly be ready as early as next week or the week after. We're in no rush. So basically whenever they're willing to release it, we'd be looking to pick that up. Supervisor Skibby was here earlier. We had the times mixed up a little bit, but he is in total support of the purchase. They want to offload it, obviously, and we discussed the price, and that's where he came up with the price of 135, so.
So the 135 plus a 10 to outfit it.
To outfit it, basically get it, yep, 145 for a total price.
That would be ALS capable?
Yep.
Okay.
And it's fully in operation right now, so it's basically a matter of us transferring equipment over, filing the paperwork for this through the state to basically have it inspected as an ALS truck. So basically, all of our county stuff would actually go over onto that new truck. We would decommission one that obviously all of our rigs except for one are well over 100,000 miles on them. So we do have a lot of miles on the rigs that we have.
I know we talked before at a previous ambulance, probably a couple of years ago now, with those cots. And I can't remember, what's the deal with the cots? Do we always have to buy new cots or can we, I know this one comes with it, but I know when we're looking at purchasing a brand new one, cots cost a ton of money. Do we always have to buy the new cot with it?
We've been in the practice of doing that. The vehicle that we're going to decommission, the cot that's on that actually has the most amount of lifts of any cot in the state of Michigan right now. So it is very old. It's one of the first ones that we purchased. So usually what we do is if it looks like we're getting close to the end of life cycle on those, that's when we would request for you guys to help us with that cost as well. We did price out a new cot, and basically it's a cot and a power load rail system. And from the manufacturer, they told us 70,000 just for the cot and power load system.
Money.
A lot of money. Yes.
Does have any questions for this?
No, I think it's price wise, it's worth, can't go wrong with it. You're not gonna find another one like that.
And 2 years minimum waiting.
Well, at some point, we talked with Mary Catherine that at some point we probably need to look at maybe extending our rotation instead of every 2 years, maybe do it every 3 years and look at any unused money that we have from an ambulance purchase into the next year.
Sure.
Because the cost of the ambulance and stuff, like anything else, is not going down.
Well, I know,
We used to be able to buy an ambulance complete for 180,000. That just isn't the case anymore.
I know in the past, it seems like we bought the new ambulance and then it was like the beginning of the beginning of this year. So if you bought it and maybe it's when it was delivered, but I thought, you said 2022, we're not actually paying for the ambulance in 2022. So my question is, so 2024, which is only next year, are we going to be in a position to buy a brand new ambulance and a cot for that new ambulance in 2 years? Or not 2 years, but next year.
Correct.
So, and I don't know the life cycle of the ambulances, but maybe that's something that we need to look at, obviously, because, we did increase the millage for the ambulance millage to include other things. But I don't know, obviously, the money's going to come from somewhere if we're going to increase it significantly, so.
And that's something with being only new in this position that I would like to research and come back to you guys with, is maybe some plans for future.
Okay,
As far as some of that equipment, because, we got cardiac monitors, those are $48,000 a piece, and we've got 8 of them. So those are the other pieces of equipment that at some point are gonna have to be replaced.
Yeah.
Right now, everything's good, but we just want to make sure that we do our diligence in planning for the future. Especially with the ambulances, and there probably is no reason we can't stretch it out to every 3 years. We do a rotation instead of every 2,
okay.
to try and better utilize your money and resources, really.
How many rigs in your fleet?
We have six ALS ambulances and 2 ALS ACO units
Okay.
that we have, so those are non-transporting. So,
And you want to be able to phase them out because you don't want to have to replace the whole fleet within the same year. So we need to look at that for sure.
yep, and 2 of the rigs are city-owned rigs that the city has purchased when we were doing long-distance transfers.
Sure.
Really, the request for that hasn't been there, so those rigs are available right now for pulling county calls. So we essentially have 44 county rigs and 2 city rigs. But we do use those as we need to, so it's not like they're designated just for certain things. If we have 4 ambulances go out and there's 2 more that happen, they go out on calls, so they're part of the fleet, so.
Very good. Thanks,
Yeah,
Chair.
you're welcome.
I have another question, Mr. Chair.
I'll make a motion. We approve the sale.
Okay,
I support.
approve, or we have a motion by Bill and support by Bert
For the purchase. Yep.
for the purchase of the new ambulance. Any other questions? Did you Are you caught up on this? Okay.
Minus the conversation that I got here, but yes.
Okay, so all those in favor of the purchase of the new ambulance, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Chair, since it's a recommendation for spending money.
Oh, yep.
Aye.
Roll call.
Good call.
Yep, roll call. Who's doing the roll call?
Commissioner Asmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Francisco,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes,
Commissioner Kozlowski.
Yes.
you're all set?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yep.
Thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we get Janelle.
Sorry, we had court just prior and we got staff members out.
That's fine.
Sorry that I'm late. I'll make it again. I'm not a vain person. I hate the angle of this camera. I actually look like this. Oh,
I'll turn it
look at you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. For January of 2023, we had expense revenue in the amount of $39,060.45. Expenses of $68,421.92. The end of month balance reads as $57,531.53, which is not an accurate reflection. I think Kim walked me through it and I walked you through it. We are at $0 in the child care fund right now. I'm due about 120, give or take, from the state in reimbursement. I just did last month and we're due 91,000 just from that. I think we have another 40 outstanding. So I'm at a standstill for bills right now. I've got about 30,000 sitting on my desk that need to be paid. But until I either get an influx from the county or an influx from the state, I could send them to the judge. I could ask the treasurer to figure it out. I've not done that, but we are at a zero sum right now.
Well, when I looked at this anticipated balance, that to me looked kind of low.
And it's
46.
lower than that because of how they do the balance sheet reports. They only make the budget adjustments once per year. So I always show as about 50,000 over this year what I actually have, because at the end of last year, I was due about 50,000 from the state. So it shows that as a credit. We've already gotten that money and it's already been spent. So that balance sheet report is somewhat deceiving.
I'm assuming the conversations with the state of Michigan are the checks in the mail.
If you can get anyone on the phone, the problem is the child care fund folks, who are phenomenal to work with, are not the people that distribute the money. And then when you call the people who distribute the money, the treasurer will tell you, they give you an EFT and it doesn't even say what it's for. I get once a month, we got this in the mail from the state of Michigan. Does anyone know who it belongs to? And someone will usually claim it, but you can't get anyone on the phone that does the actual distribution of money. And it never comes the same time every month. It never, sometimes it's 2 months together. Sometimes it's a single month. It's the auditors yell at me and like, I can give you what I can give you. This is what the state gave me. I can't give you what doesn't exist. So I don't know when the money is coming. They shut everybody down for that basic grant amendment. So I was delayed in getting December in because I can't submit a month until the prior month is approved. And after I submitted November, but before they approved it, they shut down the system for 6 weeks to allow for the basic grant amendment. So we could get the increase from 15,000 to 56. So for 6 weeks, I couldn't request any money. And the day they opened it back up, I submitted our request and they sent me an email. I'm way behind on December and we need it now. Your reimbursements are going to be delayed. It's literally shut down for 6 weeks. It's been open for 4 business hours. There's not a lot I can do. So there are bills that need to be paid and there is no money to pay them right now. This isn't a large scale problem like last time I needed a single allocation, but it has the potential to be a problem for our vendors going into next month. I don't think people mind waiting a couple weeks. I think the people we contract with that provide the services, some of them can't wait.
Well, we're literally at the end of the month. This meeting would have been previous, sometime in the month, obviously. So are you thinking we're good for 2 more weeks?
I don't know, we've got $0. Kim sent me an email last week that said, we do the blended funding allocation with the sheriff's office. The 150 was distributed in the time I vouchered it, sent it over. It's like 4,000 short to even put that 150 back that you already gave me. I thought we had the money in savings that could come out of it. Kim said that money was already taken out, I believe. So I still don't even the 150,000, which I 100% want posted in February, so we can recoup the 75 as quickly as possible. Even that has not been distributed because there's no money there.
So what do you recommend?
Well, I'd like the money fairy to come and drop a whole pile of money. I think you're talking at least, I mean, I've got 40,000 today. If I don't get a disbursement from the state tomorrow, it's unlikely I'm gonna get one for another month. I probably need at least 50,000 to bridge that gap. I also think as the reimbursements come in and that basic grant money comes in 5 or 6 months, we're here, hey, by the way, my child care fund balance is back up to the 150. Maybe the county can have that 50 back. If the distributions go the way that I hope they do, and again, one bad placement and I need another 50,000. So
The problem is gonna be where are we gonna get that 50 from? Because I know, even with the contingency fund, we don't really have probably much, because we've been talking about that one too. So where would we get it?
It would just come from the general fund.
General fund.
And then you promised to give it back?
no, I make no such promise. With that in the nose, there is no promise. I shall sign no
There's-
promissory note.
Right in blood right here.
And my hope is that as the reimbursements come in and the basic grant money comes back in, that it will equal itself out. And eventually they have to catch up. But I think it's like if I miss one paycheck here, I'm probably okay, my family and I. If I miss 2 paychecks because there's a problem, we probably can get through. You start hitting 3, 4, 5 paychecks, I start having to make adjustments. We've made adjustments. We're not buying things and the reimbursements just aren't coming at the speed in which we would like them.
Basically, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
I remember, what was it, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, we had to put about 300 and some thousand, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, right before I started, so you're talking 9 years ago, at the end of November, beginning of December, I think you had to put 350,000 in. That was not me. And then I came back about 4 years ago. We had all the youth in long-term placement, and I asked for 200,000, and you gave me 100,000. And we made that work. I never did come back and ask for the other 100,000, but that was a wild placement year. Knock on wood, we haven't been there anything even close to that since.
What are your thoughts?
So we gotta cover it.
Yeah, we
I was gonna say, we gotta cover it
too much.
somehow, so.
They have to come out of the general fund,
So it would be a budget adjustment.
budget adjustment. And you'll have to get those numbers from Kim.
The line items?
Yeah, where she can get it out of. I don't have my computer up and running, but
Would just be we'll double check, but it would
Yeah.
just be a transfer from the general fund to the child care fund of $50,000.
So I'll make a motion that we transfer $50,000 from the general fund to the child care fund from the general fund.
and Kim will have those numbers for us tomorrow for the full board.
Don't have the line item up.
Yep.
Numbers, but
And also, there was an increase in your allocation this year. So I think that along with the updated basic grant, it is entirely feasible before the end of this fiscal year that the child care fund will be in a position to return the 50,000. And of course, the judge is going to make me do that if we're able, because he is a firm believer in being good stewards of the money. So we wouldn't hold on to it if we did have it in excess.
So we have a
motion still stands.
motion and
Support.
support to transfer the 50,000. Do we have any other questions or comments? Discussion?
I'm sorry, just one, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
and you did kind of explain it, I'm sorry, I just didn't understand. So you thought the money was there, you spoke to Kim and she explained that money was already.
When I get a balance sheet report at the very top, and I don't think I have one, I might actually have one in front of me. If you don't mind if I approach, this is from Mount Morency, so it's different, but Alpena County's is essentially the same. And there's a number here, like what I always use is this ending fund balance number. Up at the top here, there's a line due from state course, it's $0 in Montmorency because we don't spend any money there. In Alpena County, it's like 59,000. And that would be from December of last year. So, well, December of 2021, because we already would have gotten it in 2022. So it shows up here as an outstanding money due from the state. So it shows as an asset that we've already gotten. So it doesn't actually exist. I didn't understand it, and then I called Kim and I had her walk me through it. Because you only do those adjustments once a year for the accruals, I think is what she calls them. That money, although received, still sits up here because it's only adjusted once a year. So I thought there was $58,000 more than there actually, and it's around 58,000 more than there actually was.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, if no other questions, roll call.
Commissioner Francisco,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Osmer, Commissioner Kozlowski.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. Step on the agenda.
Time of day, number 5.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
Yep. So we had some discussion about the time of this meeting. I know in the past that the meeting has been 4:00 on Thursdays. That's been for quite a while. Did have a conversation with Janelle, and yes, we kind of saw what happened with her. She said she's in court normally on Thursdays and sometimes might not be able to attend the meeting on Thursdays. So I asked, and that's why we came up with this meeting today, was to try to figure out what would work well for her as well as us. From her conversation, I don't know whether Thursdays will work that well for her, just because of the court times that she has. So I guess my discussion would be with you guys, what do you want to do moving forward? I've kind of mentioned to Jesse, and just in the past, this time has worked well for me. Every court meeting that we've had has pretty much been at 4:00. I know Bill has been at these meetings for, I don't know how long, but we've been doing these meetings probably about 4:00 for quite some time. So the question is, what works if we continue to do it at 4:00, what day works well with everybody else?
Well, on Mondays, there's usually nothing going on Mondays, most of the time.
I'm good with that, but are we gonna move it to a different, I mean, I don't know if we want to keep it at this time. I have no problem keeping it the last Monday of the month. If that works with everybody, does it work with you guys?
I don't know what's like,
The only thing about it being the last Monday of the month is then, like, for instance, with this motion that was just
Yeah.
made, we've already promulgated the material. So to add it onto the full board agenda for tomorrow
Move
is
it to
going to
Monday
require,
before.
right, so I would bump it back a week so that you can catch the agenda for the meeting, because it will require an addition to the agenda if we address it tomorrow.
Just second to last Monday of every month then.
Well, so we'll say third Monday.
Third Monday of the month.
third Monday of the month. So it'd be the 20th next month.
Yeah. The bad thing is,
Is the 20th or the third Monday in general?
no, the 20th,
Oh.
that Monday. And then I'm looking at April, which will be the 17th. I have something on those too, but we're gonna, I think for the sake of the committee, we'll just say, we're gonna do that and we'll figure it out. I'll figure it out moving forward, because that's really all I have on those Mondays. Everything else, coming up, we got Juneteenth is on a Monday, so that's gonna impact it as well. But that, I think we can just push it to the next day, right? So let's do that. I think that will work. Does that work for you, Jesse?
Yes.
How about you?
Will you be here on March 20th or no?
No, well, it depends. No.
Right now, I will not be here Monday, March 20th.
March 20th, I won't be.
Okay.
Yeah, March 20th, I won't be.
Will not, nor will I.
Okay,
So
so
I just have to get somebody else to.
Okay.
fill it.
I say you just.
Yes, and I can-
Dr. Brenda to replace me for that particular day.
Okay.
well, and I think if Brenda replaces you or I, if you're here, Bill, and
Yeah.
Jesse's here, I think you guys
Yeah.
would be able to manage the one day.
That is the exception. Otherwise, I'm in the
Well, that-
fortunate position that I don't
yeah.
have a JOB, so,
Those Mondays look good for me moving forward, except for, like I said, the June 19th one. And if there's a holiday and that's probably pretty slim that we'll run into that. But everything else after that looks good.
1,600 is fine.
Okay.
Anybody wants to spend any money, John's out of town. That Monday would be the day
Be
to
the
ask.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if there was room for any other input on that. I know you asked Ms. Mott and you asked Mr. Piper if that was okay.
I haven't asked him.
Well,
I see him. He hasn't said anything.
I just wanted to throw out there because Judge Curtis isn't here and Judge Black isn't here. I don't know if they regularly attend. I know Judge Curtis usually has court that may or may not wrap up by 4 p.m. on a Monday. And specifically as to the third Monday of the month, Judge Black has a very large motion day, which I participate in, as does Mr. Pfeiffer. And I could be here and make it work, of course, but I don't know if Judge Black would have anything, if he would be available to come in the third Monday of every month is what he
Well,
has.
we'll say we're gonna move forward for next month. We'll do it on the third Monday of next month next month. And then we can reexamine, I'll get with Bill, unless you have something, Bill, that you could add right now.
the only thing I was gonna say was consistent with what Cynthia just said, is that is generally a motion day of Judge Black, and those motion days have been running late recently. So most of the time, we're gonna be done by 4, but there are occasionally times where we may not be. So could be a problem here or there, but most of the time I will be available by 4.
Well, we could just pack the other individuals prior to that, because I mean, this isn't gonna end by 4:30 anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if it's a situation where I could be moved down the agenda as
Yeah.
needed, then that'd be
Yeah.
fine with me.
Okay, well, why don't we'll plan this for now, and if we feel that it doesn't work, we can make an adjustment moving forward. Does that work for you
Yep,
guys?
that works.
Okay. Okay. All right, so we're good with that, then we'll move on. I guess the next up is you, Bill.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to be relatively brief today. So the quarterly report for the first quarter of the fiscal year, which for this fund ends on December 31st of the year, we spent just less than $140,000, which is about 18% or a little more than 18% of our total budget. There was a little bit of a snafu early on, and that was we had not received that first 25% grant payment from the state. So we were perilously close to overdrawing in December. But those monies did come in, and we're all set. And then I believe, I'm not sure if Kim can hear me or not, but I believe the second 25% payment came in right towards the end of January. So we're not in any danger of overspending. The first quarter has traditionally always been the lowest spending quarter of the grant cycle. So being at 18% is pretty much consistent with where we've been in the past. Generally, the fourth quarter or the last quarter of the fiscal year is when everything catches back up and gets closer to the 100%. I don't really have anything else financially. I mean, I don't think that there's any bumps in the road, or we're not anticipating any bumps in the road. So as far as item number 2, the financial updates, like I say, there's nothing on the horizon that I see that's concerning. Mary Catherine does have an action item on under her portion of the agenda, and that is a request to increase the overall grant amount. I won't get into that too much. The reason being that because of the murder case that was issued I have one of 3 people that were charged out of that case. And so I'm not able to be involved with the actual amounts that are planned and or any of the expenditures regarding any expert witnesses or any investigative services because I have one of the co-defendants. So Mary Catherine will speak to that later in the meeting. But just to say that the amount of the grant that's going to increase, assuming that you guys approve it, isn't going to do anything to the local share. So it's not going to make the local share any higher. It's just going to be more money that the state's going to put in. And as far as the decision maker on those funds, there is a MAC manager out of the Upper Peninsula, Chad Pelletier, who will be the one that will be reviewing those requests and approving those. Is all he will do to me is send on the bottom line for me to submit to the county clerk's office. But I won't have any say so in terms of approving or disapproving any of those additional funds, assuming that you approve that request that's coming up later in the meeting. So unless there's any questions, I don't have anything else to add for today's purposes.
I don't have any other questions. Anyone else have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, well, I guess we're all good. Thank you, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
Next up is Cynthia.
Afternoon.
Actually, it should be ladies before gentlemen, but
No, you have this all planned out. You go first.
I first must apologize. I know I'm going to ask for a lot of money here, and I'm going to be long-winded because this is kind of a confusing thing I got going here. So for the commissioners that are new this year, 2022, the county decided to go with all enterprise lease vehicles. So early last year, we went ahead and ordered 8 vehicles. 2 were administration vehicles, 6 were patrol vehicles. At the time that we decided to do lease vehicles, we were also going to tackle another couple of projects. One being we had to look at outfitting all these cars with new equipment, and then also incorporate new in-car cameras and body cameras. So at first, we were going to lease these vehicles, and then we had gotten approval for $112,000 for the first round of vehicles, which was 7 in-car cameras and 18 body cameras. The actual cost of that was $114,000. I have the invoice, but I have not made that payment as of yet. Going forward this year, where I kind of take this a little on my shoulders as a failure to realize that going into this year's budget, we didn't set any money aside. We didn't, and we should have, but the fact is we didn't. So we have another 6 vehicles coming that we are going to have to put equipment in and cameras in. And like Chief Edmond said, the supply chain is horrible for police and in everything, and the cost is going up. So for 5 additional in-car cameras that we would be seeking, it was going to be another $57,225. Like I said, I have not paid the 2022 bill. Motorola did say that we could make payments for 5 years. So those cameras, the body cameras in the first round of cameras, in-car cameras, that was for 5 years of storage on top. You're not just getting cameras and body cameras and in-car cameras, you're getting the cameras and 5 years of storage. So like I said, for additional 5, it would be $57,225. Motorola did say we could make yearly installments on that. So if we chose to do the first set, it would be $22,800 per year. If we chose to do that with the second set that we were needing, it would be $17,625 for the first years, and then $9,900 for years 2 through 5. So that would be, I have to see where I put that here. So you add those two amounts, if we wanted to do the yearly payment, we would not, so if we have 112 already budgeted, we would not have to come back to seek money until round 3, and then we can budget that. So that's the cameras. Now, the other side of this is vehicle outfitting. So we had actually gone to Telerad for quotes on vehicle outfitting. We had gone to a place called Emergency Services down in Muskegon. We couldn't get the police interceptors through Ford like we wanted to. Late last year, they actually canceled our order and said you're gonna have to reorder 23s because they're no longer making the 22 models. It's been an absolute nightmare to get these vehicles. At that time, we met with Enterprise. Berger Chevrolet had Tahoes on a lot down in Grand Rapids. They had the 6 Tahoes that we needed. Actually, when I heard about it, they had 40. 2 weeks later, they were down to 6. Everybody's buying cars. They told us about it. They were trying to sell it to us as a gold package, which meaning they would already have the outfitting done. That was not the case. We're still sending the Tahoes over to a local vendor in Grand Rapids to get the outfitting done. So if we're expecting 6 more vehicles. If you take 6 and average $12,000, it's like another $72,000 we're gonna need for vehicle outfitting. And then there was some things that we did not take in consideration through this whole process. When these cars are coming, no matter if you get a Tahoe or a police interceptor, they send you a tire that is a summer pursuit rated tire and not a all-season tire. So we didn't even take that into consideration when we started this project last year. So I guess what I'm asking for is we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna do this outfitting. We could so we did get $76,000 approved for that first 8. We've received our 2 administration vehicles and 1 Tahoe at this time. We could take, so if you're looking at the 2023 outfitting, there's other stuff that we need, some MDTs, some printers, that kind of stuff. It'd be $11,000. What we could do is pay for that equipment out of the $76,000 that was approved last year. Pay that off, take the leftover money, pay Enterprise for the vehicle outfitting, whatever's left over, we could roll it into the lease of the vehicle. To shorten this up, my suggestion would be, we have to pay for the equipment, we have to pay for the outfitting, we have to pay for the cameras. I would request, and I know it's a large amount of money, but the county pay $173,000 additional to what was approved last year to get this project done and finished. $59,225 would be added to the cameras, and then $114,031 would be added to the vehicle outfitting. Hopefully I didn't confuse anybody.
So I think really the options before you are the one, you pay it all up front in the way that you had originally envisioned it when you budgeted the funds. Or because the costs have gone up, you spread it out over a payment methodology, whether that's, through the lease of the vehicles and rolling it in with the outfitting through Enterprise or with a payment plan through Motorola. You guys budgeted this to come directly from the ARPA fund. Which is why you don't see it on like the vehicle equipment fund or something like that. So right now it's budgeted right out of Fund 214, which is the sheriff car and body cameras and the outfitting of the sheriff vehicles. So that's where that money is budgeted at the moment. So that's where it is sitting.
I did follow up on, I think Commissioner Peterson forwarded to us, or it might not have been you, about a camera grant. And I've been researching that. Actually went to an hour and a half seminar, and about halfway through it, they said you can't use, because it's a county match, you would get $2,000 per body camera. You can't use American Rescue money or COVID-19 money. So we were not good for that, but we're looking. I know it's going to cost a lot extra money, but that's the facts in front of us, I guess.
Well, I guess the first thing that jumped into my mind was if this is what it costs to outfit a vehicle, I don't know if we need to be outfitting vehicles every 2 years because this is going to cost us a ton of money.
Sure.
The equipment rolls. So there is a cost to decommission the vehicle, which is to say, so with Enterprise, when we decide that it's time to sell a vehicle back to Enterprise, we decommission it. We take the equipment out and we put it in the next vehicle. So you're not looking at rebuying all the equipment when you turn a vehicle.
Well, when you said outfit it, to me, outfitting is, so this is all brand new equipment. I thought you already had a lot of those. Is it the cameras that for the body cameras that you had in your office?
Yeah, so those body cameras that are in my office were from the original purchase in 2022. So going forward, we stay with Tahoe's, all this equipment that we're buying, when we're leasing vehicles, when we're turning in, we're just going to put them into the next new vehicle. So they're, like Mary Catherine said, you will have to pay to switch it out, but we're not gonna have to buy new at that time.
Well, is this specific equipment for specific vehicles then? Like, so I know we were, and that's another thing, we were originally gonna buy what are they, Ford Interceptors? And so we're getting the Tahoes. So, and I'm assuming the Tahoes cost more money, but are we looking at then continuing to buy the Tahoes in the future? It's gonna always be a Tahoe?
Correct. And it didn't matter if we bought or leased Interceptors or Tahoes, the vehicles that we currently have, the 2013s, all that equipment is obsolete to go into a 2022 Interceptor. So we would have to buy the equipment.
Well, and I'm assuming, 5 years down the road, with the different designs and stuff like that, I'm assuming at some point the equipment won't be able to be transferred into any newer vehicles 5 years from now.
Well, the cameras, knock on wood, they should, they're brand new. Hopefully they'll last that long. Tahoe is the current model has only been around for about a year, that body style. So hopefully that will be around, but your guess is as good as mine is when the car companies change their models.
But those cameras will be able to go in any vehicle,
Yes.
so
Cameras, yeah.
it doesn't matter what we're driving.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Like the Tahoes will fit a Tahoe because it's the width of the center console. You know what I mean? An Interceptor is a little bit narrower, the Tahoe is wider. So typically they'll make like a custom bracket that if you were to use the old Tahoe model. But like I said, the Interceptors, they completely redid them, so they're just obsolete.
So Sheriff, so I'm looking at your document you provided, and the 2022 vehicle outfitting is already approved of 76,172.
Correct.
Correct. To outfit the next 6 cars that are coming in is an additional 11,615 per copy for an expected cost of 83,615.
Yeah, it would be roughly estimate of 72,000 to outfit the next cars, and then for the extra equipment that we need, 11,600. That's where that 80.
That's for the other, okay, so it's 72 plus 11,615 for the next 6 cars.
And just FYI, we have no idea when these next 6 vehicles are showing up. They could show up in 6 months, they could show up in 8 months.
It's been quite a headache, to be honest with you.
Well, so I guess another question that I would have, because I thought originally you said we got 6.
We thought we were getting, yes.
So I guess, do we just go with whatever vehicle comes available, or now we locked into the Tahoes? And then another question to that is, what's the difference in price between the Interceptor and the Tahoe?
So we're locked into the 6 Tahoes. And it's not that they don't have them, they're there waiting to be outfitted at the outfitting place called Great Lakes Upfitting in Grand Rapids. They have like 200 cars on the lot, because every agency is trying to get them done. So if they had, you know, the vacancy, they could get us in and have those cars tomorrow, but they can't work that fast.
So to answer, we did have a long discussion with both Enterprise and Eric. Sheriff Smith talked to some of the other law enforcement agencies about the switch. Like, did it make sense? Didn't want to buy the Tahoes just to buy the Tahoes because they were available. There are a lot of law enforcement agencies, particularly up in our part of the world, who are making the switch entirely over from the Interceptor to the Tahoe for a lot of different reasons. And then when we talked to Enterprise, we had a discussion with them about the fact that the Tahoes actually have a much better resale value. So than the Interceptors. So in 2 years or in 3 years, and probably closer to 2 rather than the 5 years, because those vehicles get pretty high mileage on them. And the mileage is what dictates when Enterprise says it's time to sell those vehicles, because you don't want to get them too high of mileage. They hold their value much better than the Interceptor. So we'll see. The theory is we will see a much better return on the Tahoe than on the Interceptor, even though they are a more expensive vehicle to buy up front, but not as much more expensive as I thought, honestly.
When we were first found those Tahoes, they had canceled our 22 order, like I had said. And down at the sheriff's conference, we were told that the Interceptor 23 model was probably going to be more than the Tahoe. You know, we found that that's not entirely the truth, but it's closer than what you would think.
Do we know, did we ever get an actual cost on that?
No, because they're not even pricing out the 23 Interceptors
The
yet.
last Tahoe we bought with the Stone Garden grant, 21, we paid $38,000 for a brand new Tahoe.
The brand new ones that we're purchasing now are, I have to pull it up, hold on.
Time can ask a question.
Sure.
All right, Sheriff, just out of curiosity, how long do these cameras, what's the lifespan on average for a camera?
Well, so like I said, the 5-year storage, they're warranted for that 5 years. You know, we have cameras in our cars that are from 2013 that are they're just obsolete now. They still work, but.
And the reason I ask is we see a lot of communities in Michigan and elsewhere that are downsizing their police forces stupidly, I think, my own opinion, but could we put cameras, you know, from some of these that are maybe where they're not, maybe not using them? Has that been studied at all?
So the Motorola cameras that we're getting, the car camera links with the body camera.
Oh, I see.
So like when you activate the lights, your in-car camera's coming on, your body camera's coming in, they're talking.
Got it. Okay.
But it's not only that, it's the storage and the software to control that data, that, you know, the videos. And then there's the whole portion of FOIA requests and the redaction software that goes with that, because everybody's gonna be asking for FOIA requests.
Right.
So I mean, it's a large amount of money, I get it. But there's a lot that goes on here, that we're getting, so.
This isn't how I wanted to start a meeting.
I mean, well, so these vehicles aren't here now. I mean, it could be 6 months before.
Yeah, we're expecting, 3 more, this year, within the next couple months, and then we have a 6 additional I'm guessing those will probably come July, August, or after.
Hope maybe we can find a grant or something.
So the 6 would cover, you're asking for the 6 that we don't physically have those vehicles yet, correct?
I'm asking for 5 additional cameras for the 6 cars that are coming out.
5 additional for the 6 vehicles?
Yep. I know the numbers aren't matching, but yes, that would completely satisfy our needs for vehicles.
And for that particular cost, is 57,225 with the purchase option of 17,625 in year one and then about 10 grand per year for 2 through 5. Okay.
Yep.
Then in addition to that, you're talking about the vehicle outfitting and et cetera, I believe.
You know, and there's ways we can save money, like, last time we used, Harborside Tint. I think it was $950 to outfit, or not outfit, mark the cars. We've used Omega in the past. They're significantly cheaper. I mean, we're not gonna go, you know, we're gonna find the best deal. It's not like we're gonna try to spend this money that we got it. It's just, we need to get all our bases covered and get to finish up the project.
Was it doing the gold standard when we initially bought them quite a bit more expensive?
Gold standard.
For the vehicles, when you said you could have bought the Tahoes with the gold standard plan or whatever it is,
The gold package,
package.
that was, last October, November that we talked to them, right, Gavin, about that?
So I hope we didn't pay for the gold package and not get it.
Well, they just had an outlet to get the vehicle. You were still paying for it no matter what. If we went to that outfitter or if we're going to Telerad or another one, it's just they had the connection to have them outfitted. If that makes sense.
Did we pay for that?
No, we haven't paid for those. That's,
Oh, that was an option.
Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't matter where we get them outfitted at. We signed the agreement with Enterprise, and Mary Catherine might be able to help me more with this. They go and get outfitted. The outfitter then bills Enterprise, and that gets put into our lease. So we can pay that outfitting cost.
We're going to go through Enterprise.
Right. It all gets funneled through Enterprise.
So the 2023 Chevrolet Tahoe Special Service Vehicle, they quoted to us, so it's 48,000.
So they had gone up $10,000 in
10 grand.
1 year.
Yep. And that's before, obviously, any of the aftermarket equipment is added.
Sure.
They quoted us, so the gold package represents about $20,000 worth of aftermarket equipment that's added in.
Vehicle?
Yep.
Oh,
So that's your dome lighting, your grill lamps, your rear window, locks, running lights, all of that good stuff that gets added in.
basically, you're buying 4 wheels and a frame, and they just put everything on it, and they charge you for it.
The 76,000 is currently in your budget right now for this year, correct?
Yeah, it's in that line item. Yeah.
It's in that line item, okay.
so if we approve this, we got to come up with to figure out the other 83,000.
Plus,
If you want to pay it up front,
if you want to play up front,
right?
the other equipment, like tires and whatever else he's got listed here.
And we could go back and, and see, if we wanted to pay a portion up front and then finance a portion would be another way to do it. But, then it's just slicing and dicing the numbers. And if we don't get the vehicles delivered, then we don't get an invoice, then we don't spend the money this year and we roll it forward into 2024's budget.
Looking for this committee to approve an extra 80, no, more than that, 97,000-ish. My public math isn't great as I'm scrolling up and down in this document here, but
I would ask that you approve $114,031 for vehicle outfitting, and then an additional $59,225 for extra camera.
over and above with the 70-some thousand that's already been budgeted.
Correct. And then we can get into the enterprise lease and actually turn the vehicles over and see if that program is actually doing what it's supposed to.
without having a study of the budget. I mean, I'm not there.
Well, you could also take it out, you know, we have the ARP funds. Take it out of there because it's already, that money's put aside. We could take it out of there and if we don't use it, we don't have to take it out of there till we use it.
Correct. So, I mean, they're budgeted for this year is the 112,000 for the camera project and the 76,000 for the vehicle outfitting. So, I mean, these really are two separate things. I know we're kind of mushing them together. The body cameras, which correlate with the in-car cameras, is separate from the vehicle outfitting, but we're taking the money out of the same place, which is, or at least budgeted out of the same place, which is the ARPA dollars. So they're kind of getting mushed together. You could approve one, not the other. You could approve both. You could say, spend this year's money and come back. But Eric needs some certainty, and Sheriff Smith needs some certainty about what he can order and what we can, say, yes, absolutely, we can go ahead and do the budget.
So how this all came about is when the county got the big lump sum, there was a list of projects that people put in for, what are your wish lists? And obviously our cars are, old and high mileage, so we put cars on there, and then body cameras, in-car cameras and that kind of stuff. And the reason why we did this at the same time, obviously we need cars and good quality cars, but the cameras, they're going to be potentially mandated by the federal government, I believe, at some point, or the state government. And it was a way to get this out of the way using the ARPA money or the rescue money without later having to come out of the general fund. And I know all the money gets rolled in together, but these are really, like I said, to start, like 3 different projects that are really big, all rolled up in one. That's where it came from.
The state did just actually mandate, I believe, COs now have to have body cams. I think the DNR COs do. And I know one of the arguments was it actually saves money in
On insurance.
well, and also on the courts, people basically claiming things are happening that aren't actually happening. So I would agree. I think that's coming down the pike, though. Would this would have to go to the full board? I mean,
Yeah,
we're
well, we
basically-
need a recommendation from here that money, where money is going to come from and go to the full board. I mean, it's,
I think I agree with Bill. If we're going to use money, to me, the place to take it from would be ARPA. Because we can't keep pulling it out of the general fund.
Do we do the lump or do we?
but also, Eric, with these leases, all the maintenance is coming out of, from enterprise, right? Most of it.
So the idea with leases, they're all covered under warranty, and really the only thing we're going to be buying is oil changes.
Yeah.
Well, and actually the oil changes are covered under your lease payment.
So
Yeah.
that was Enterprise's big, I think they said that we're going to save, they analyzed all of our vehicles in the county, and I think they said that we're going to save like $1 million in a 10-year time frame just on vehicle maintenance county.
Well, of course they're going to say that. They're selling us the vehicles.
But it has, I mean, at
I
least,
think where he's coming at, we got 2013 vehicles, and anybody who owns a older car knows it's a bleed on your money, on your wallet after so many years. It's just $1 after another going. And that's one of the things we want with the enterprise, so it's just rotated through a new car.
And that's kind of my idea with asking you guys to pay for the equipment. And then, so all we're paying is for the lease payment. We have the equipment, we have everything else. We can actually roll the vehicles over like Enterprise anticipated, so we can actually validate or see if that program's actually working. Because if it's not, we should get out of it. But hopefully, we don't know until we try it, right? So
And the supply chain issues unfortunately tripped us up, right? Because the anticipation was actually, we started this in late 2021, right? Was that we would get cars in late 2021, early 2022, and we would have already had almost a year worth of vehicles so that we're not, because I must admit, have a little bit of a concern because we're going to get all these vehicles in essentially the same budget year and all the equipment. So we don't have quite the same way to, space it out from in whatever the useful lifetime is of the camera to make sure that we're turning them over. So we will have to start being proactive about that and scheduling that out on our CIP. But it is what it is at this point.
I think the city went to the same program also, right?
Whether the body cameras are mandated, in-car cameras are mandated, quite frankly, it's an officer safety issue. And I think that, our officers, your deputies, they should have that equipment without a doubt. I do. And if we're going to use ARPA funds, I think this would be a better investment because we are buying something, of equipment that's tangible that will go again to officer and citizen protection and safety. So that's where my head's at right now. And at this point, I'm just, do we say, once the ARPA money's gone, it's gone? Do we make the full investment or do we continue making payments? In my mind, those are just the two questions that have to be answered. Either or.
One other thing, Eric, on storage, is that good for 5 years on these 2023 cameras that we're getting?
So the first
8.
7 and 18, that would have started when we just got our, as of 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, we just got Motorola to come and do the startup at our office because we had to get the servers put in, we had to get the first camera. So our deputies are not wearing body cameras as of yet. So I would need some clarification. When does that 5-year start? The day that we start using them or the day we receive them?
We've already purchased those.
Right. We haven't paid for them yet.
Yeah, but they're in your office.
Yes.
But the new ones, we knew the extra 5 cameras you got for storage for your new cars.
Yeah, I would clarify with them, but yes, I would think that when
When we receive them, they'll start the 5 years.
Just all at once.
Well,
the other thing you got to consider, and I know I said this before, and I know it's a huge amount of money, but if those body cameras or in-car cameras stops one lawsuit, you've paid for the whole project in one shot.
So what are your recommendations?
I'll make a motion, we take the money, pay for the whole thing right off the bat and get it out of the way from the ARPA funds. And again, that money's not going to come out till the bills come in, till we ordered it and they receive them. I mean, they're not going to send you a bill for 5 cameras and they haven't shipped them.
Right.
Yeah.
But I can, I know it has to go to the full board tomorrow, but if you approve it, then I can start making, paying that stuff and make the process go a little faster.
This will not go to the full board tomorrow unless somebody amends the agenda. It will go to finance in 2 weeks, but yes.
I'll second Bill's motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. And what the total was
173,
256.
56.
172,000.
So 114 would have to go into the vehicle outfitting and then another 59,225 in the camera.
Total.
But the total would be 172,256.
So we're gonna take that 173 out of the ARPA funds. 112 of that already been approved?
Correct. So essentially you would be increasing the 112 by 114,000. So. And the
We'll
7,
increase the 112 to the 114, so an additional 2 plus the 59 to get to the 173.
You would increase the 112 that's already been approved.
Yep.
You would increase it by 59,225.
oh, there we go. Yes, to get to,
Whatever that number
yes,
is.
the 171. And then for the other one, 76,000 would get increased.
By 114.
We have a motion and support so far.
So I'm just still trying to figure this out. So the 112 was approved. You need 114. $114,031. The cameras are an additional 59. So what you said, we're gonna, the total that you need is 173,256. And that gives you everything?
So we have two things going on. We were approved for $112,000 for the cameras.
Yep.
We're asking for 5 additional cameras, and that would have been $57,000.
725.
2,000 outstanding that wasn't covered yet, and then the 57, so we're asking for additional $59,000.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So on the outfitting of the cars, we were approved for $76,172. We're asking for an additional $83,000, check that, $114,000 to fix that side.
So
So
Everybody got those numbers right?
bottom line is you need 173,256
56. Do everything.
out of,
Additional.
okay. So we're all clear then? Clear.
We will do our due diligence to make sure we're not frivolously, if we can save money, we're gonna save money, but
Right, do you rotate the cars? You don't, most
No,
of the
they're
time?
assigned to individuals, right?
Yeah, sign it, you got 18, yeah, you got 18 deputies now.
14.
14?
We're at 13, we have 1 vacancy.
Okay, so do we have any other questions? If not, we'll do a roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Osmer? Yes. Commissioner Francisco?
Yes.
Commissioner Kozlowski?
Yes,
Thank you, everyone.
don't come back too soon.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me guess, you want money too?
Well,
Not as much as him.
Well, now that you have,
sure, it was already today. It was rock and a hard place, and it was cameras and body cameras and footage. And so that all really plays into what I have to tell you today. And as I phrased my memo to this particular committee, it's more of, I wanted to start the conversation about what we can foresee happening in the very near future. And speaking with sooner than I had anticipated. So if I could just begin by letting you know that as a county, we're going to be facing 2 major problems here in the very near future, as I said. One is the storage of all of the body cam footage and in-car camera footage that is currently coming in, not only from, those anticipated from the sheriff's office, but from Michigan State Troopers, of which there's more than 14 that work in our area, as well as all of the city cameras and body cameras, both from their vehicles and the body cameras. So storage of all of that material is about to become a big problem in speaking with Steve Musso from the IT department. The other big issue is that the prosecutor's office and most prosecutors' offices across the state rely on a computer software system that was designed in the late 80s by the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan. And what that software does is, if you can, I don't know how many of you have seen a criminal history sheet before, and I could not bring one in to just share with everyone here because it is confidential. But in the Michigan criminal history sheets, there's 3 different segments. The following segment is what happens in court, all of the convictions, everything that the enforcement prosecutor's office work hard to getting those convictions on those particular records and finding justice in everything that we do. At the beginning, the first column is when the actual arrest is made by the law enforcement agency. The middle column are the charges that the prosecutor's office brings forth in court. And each one of those columns builds upon the other column. So if there's no arrest column, then I can't possibly fill in my charging column, and there will never be a conviction column filled in. So the law enforcement agencies, upon arrest, that goes in the first column. And then upon conviction, the court system actually fills in the third column. But the court system cannot fill in any conviction column or have any record other than their own court files as to what this person has done in their past. A segment that I rely on very heavily when I'm reviewing various cases and deciding whether or not the person needs to be charged as a habitual offender or a second-time offender, things like that. But the point is that that third segment can never get filled in unless my segment, the middle column, gets filled in. And the software that allows me to do that is the software that was originally made by the Prosecuting Attorneys Association. And for the past 30 or so years, almost 40 years, I should say now, the Prosecutors Association has been maintaining that software and updating that software. But for the past 5 to 7 years, they have been letting all the prosecutors know that there is a life expectancy that is about to expire on this particular software. They can no longer be putting Band-Aids on the software in hopes that it will update and continue to work for all of us. So about 5 or 7 or so years ago, they started a new task force amongst the prosecutors to find a replacement for this particular system. And after trying to work with a particular company to develop their own system specific to the Prosecutors Association, they realized that that was not going to be fruitful, and they were done pretty much bashing their heads up against the wall, trying to work to develop their own software. Well, meanwhile, there were many companies out there who had already developed this particular software and was working for prosecuting attorneys associations throughout the country, and some throughout Michigan as well. And so as a statewide entity, what they have done is researched the various companies, and they've broke it down into top 3 contenders for a replacement software for their particular software. It's called the Adult Case Tracking System and the Juvenile Case Tracking System, but we basically just call it ACT when we're talking about it. So the ACT system is essential in that it takes in all the data from each and every single case that comes through our doors, whether it's authorized or not, and we input the defendant's name, all their contact information, any witnesses involved in the case, but ultimately the charging decisions that are made in that particular case. And that's where it gets uploaded to fill out that middle column in the criminal history sheets that then allows the convictions to be entered later on. So in doing my own research, along with asking other prosecuting attorneys across the state, one of those companies has stood out for me in particular, and that is the Carpel Solutions, which you have the packet in front of you. It's an actual estimate that they provided for Alpena County specifically. And we have been looking at this particular company for quite some time, maybe roughly a year or so ago. I got that estimate from them. I did have an opportunity at my recent convention in Traverse City to ask if any of the dollar amounts would be going up, since the estimate was somewhat aged. And Mr. Carpel himself indicated to me that he would honor this particular estimate. There are some dollar amounts that are kind of written in, because if you see, the estimate is for 9 users within my office, and there would actually have to be 10 users in the office. However, there is a breakdown in subsections of these estimates. If you have 10 or less employees or users in your office, then you're into a particular cost bracket, and there's 10 to 25 or so. Anyways, we will still stay within the least amount of users as broken down by those brackets. Where there was a per user expense. I did just add in one more user for those. So what we currently pay for in this ACT system, it's only about $100 a year. We pay the Prosecuting Attorneys Association to continue to put Band-Aids on this system that's about to expire. In the past, they had told us it may have an expiration date of, well, they said when Windows 10 rolled out, that this would not be compatible with Windows 10. Now, since they've been working with these three companies, they've gotten estimates from the three companies for one of these three companies to take over and roll over the entire state of Michigan. It could take 4 to 5 years, 3 to 5 in some instances, 4 to 5 for others. So they're hoping and praying that the ACT system lasts long enough for this rollover. However, with my estimate, me getting kind of my foot in the door with this particular company a little bit earlier, I would be able to do that much sooner. We would be able to fully transfer over in roughly 12 months. So that 12-month date is very particular, particularly as it speaks to our IT department. So don't let me forget to tell you about why that's important. But what I also want to tell you is that in addition to the ACT services that we pay roughly $100 or so annually for that, that system takes care of our data entry materials. We also pay for a subscription for a subsidiary to the Cherryland system, which I think the courts used or are using at this time. And that's called Filer. And Filer is our document tracking system, where instead of carrying files into court every day, we carry a computer and we can look up every single case that we have had since about 2012. And have all of our documents from that particular file in that Filer system. In speaking with Steve Musso this morning, he's the one who pays our subscriptions for that Filer system. And prosecuting attorneys, or my office rather, has an annual subscription to that for $3,500 a year. So those two systems combined in this roughly $36 or so $100 a year. And when you look at the particular estimate from Carpel, it's broken down into a one-time cost, and that would be for the rollover of all of our current materials and everything listed in the one-time cost. And that is a total of $71,650 is their current estimate for that. The annual subscription rates, however, are listed separately. And those would be roughly $11,625 per year. And so while that is more than the $3,600 that we currently pay per year, we have to backtrack now to my conversation with Mr. Musso earlier today. He brought up to my attention about a month or a month and a half ago now, which is the exponential rate which we are using storage throughout the system, downloading and keeping all of the body cams and in-car videos. So right now, I think that they have planned, no, don't quote me on this, and this is why today is more of me wanting to have a discussion with this particular committee, so that way I can go back and get answers to any questions that you may have, particularly these from Mr. Musso, who I'm trying to set up an appointment for him to sit down and talk with the IT experts from this particular program to make sure we have all the equipment and won't face any hiccups if we do end up going with this particular company in the near future. He indicated that I believe we have planned, or we currently have growth in storage of about 10% per year. So we'll use about 110% of the storage we used last year. It's my understanding that he has actually planned for 130% storage, so an increase of 30% of storage. But at the rate that we're currently going, it'd be more like 150% storage usage. And if, even at the 130%, I believe, and I'll ask Steve to put something in writing for me, he's looking at needing a new storage, new method of storage. And I don't know if that is what exactly that means, but he's looking at a really hefty price tag for that as well, to the tune of maybe $50,000 to purchase that new piece of equipment. And the continued cost of not only getting that piece of equipment, but then paying for additional backup through, I think he has a backup to the cloud and another backup method as well. If you use X number of data storage, he informed me again today that it would be roughly another $10,000 per year to increase the amount of storage that would be needed, that he is anticipating at this time. So in saying that, I asked him if we were to make this switch in 12 months' time, would we be able to avoid the $50,000 purchase, since the prosecutor's office would no longer be needing storage on site? Okay. Could we avoid the $10,000 annually to the increase that would be needed every year for that storage? And he could not necessarily give me a definitive answer, but he did say the sooner that I can act on this, the sooner I can get all my data stored with a particular company, that the more likelihood we could avoid those particular costs. So what Carpel does is what these two companies combined do. It's the data entry and data case management, as well as the document case management. So it would be combining both of those, as well as containing its own storage, would be cloud storage. So that would eliminate the prosecutor's office putting that burden on the county storage devices as well. So with that, could I go back to either Carpel or the Prosecuting Attorneys Association? You all may have.
I guess my first question is, if not this, if not, I'll call it Carpel. If not Carpel, then, I mean, this other system is going to sunset. What happens if this sunsets and this hasn't been approved or one similar to it? I mean, I can just imagine the impact that it would have on you and your office and law enforcement in general.
Right, we wouldn't have a communication method between the law enforcement agencies. I'd have to research or develop my own way with some company in which to upload the charging segment, to the CCH. So the convictions could eventually enter. We'd basically be at a pretty fixed stop, Jeffrey, at that particular point, because there will come a time once the Prosecuting Attorneys Association picks which company they're going to go with. That doesn't mean that I have to go with that particular company. But when they do pick that company and they do make the official rollover and they're all done with it, they're going to completely shut off the ACT system. So we won't have that use any longer.
But they wouldn't do that prior to then everyone getting on board with whatever software.
Well, there will be a hard and fast deadline where they will shut it off.
I know, but I'm saying, if you're saying that the Prosecuting Attorneys Association picks a software to go with and says, this is the one we're going to go with, they're going to give you, like you said, a date. They're not going to just say, you have until next week to get this switched over, because the likelihood of that is not going to happen.
There'll be a between 3 to 5 year rollover time period where the company will come and roll over each individual.
One of the questions that I have when I read through this is, you talked about 17 different counties that have actually switched over. So what happens if the Prosecuting Attorneys Association decides to go with a different one? I know you said it doesn't matter, but you would think if they're going to get like all the counties trying to switch over to the same one, there should be a cost saving. I would think there'd be a cost savings. If you got 83 counties and, some of them already switched over, that's a lot of counties that are going to be purchasing at that price. That's a ton of money for one company to be getting.
Right.
So is it a benefit to wait to see which way the Prosecuting Attorneys Association goes with?
The one benefit that could come from that is that the Prosecuting Attorneys Association is going to try to do their due diligence in looking for grant funding to maybe offset the initial cost for the entire state. So what that will translate to each individual county, they can't say for certain. They don't know if they're going to get any of that money whatsoever. And their estimates that they have gotten for a statewide program are based off of like 1,000 users signing up at one time. So I didn't want to compare apples to oranges with what they have proposed as a statewide system. I think that Carpel has a lot of support amongst the other prosecuting attorneys associations as well. Wayne County is one that has signed up with Carpel, and they're by far the biggest county. I first heard about it from smaller counties such as Crawford and Clare County. And I know that Iosco as well as Alpena County are about to make the switch. They're in transition right now.
You mentioned there were 3 companies, Carpel being one, and the other 2, are they getting as much thought or approval by the prosecuting, the PAAM or?
Yes, so some counties already have one or the other of the other companies. So obviously they are going to either stick with that particular company and work out some type of solution. Really, the solutions don't have to be that these companies need to communicate with PAM, which is the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan. But they have to communicate with the Law Enforcement Information Network to fill out those particular conviction segments. Or the charging segments when it comes to our.
I'm sorry, what was the name of the other company?
There's one called OnBase, which some counties have. OnBase, those counties will likely have to also purchase what's called LawBase, which is their accompanying system. Because right now OnBase kind of works, in my understanding, as our filer system. It just holds our documents. It doesn't do any of the uploading to the Law Enforcement Information Network. So they would have to purchase what's called LawBase in order to replace the ACT system. So what Carpel does is the systems that I currently have, it does both of those, so we wouldn't have to purchase a secondary system that communicates with it.
I'm sorry, is the one that has a secondary system, sorry. I mean, would this be a cost savings though, even if you were purchasing 2, is it still cheaper than Carpel?
They didn't do any cost analysis to have the secondary system because they wanted to really break down the basic system for each of the 3 companies. And so the most basic for OnBase was just the case management portion, where Carpel has both included in the particular price.
And then the other item is, it looks like this company's been around since 1985. Obviously, a lot of advances in technology, so not going back that far, but it would be nice to see what kind of subscription increases there's been over a 6-year period.
Okay.
To see where that 11,000 might look 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now,
Sure.
if possible. And I know obviously everything changes on the amount of employees you have access to and stuff like that, but let's say we keep everything as is. We could just get an idea of what the climb might look like over a 6-year period.
And you'll see that I've also given you a letter of support from First Lieutenant John Grimshaw from our Michigan State Post here in Alpena. He has some troopers who are currently working in Alpena County and who are using this particular system with the prosecutor there and just the conveniences that it has had for them. I do, as I stated, anticipate letters of support from the sheriff as well as the city police chief. And possibly even I'm going to be asking the public defender's office because it's my understanding that they are researching this particular product as well, Carpel. What that does is law enforcement agencies would get one portal and all 3 agencies would upload all of their reports, all of the discovery, all of the exhibits, photographs, videos into the system. So they would no longer have to print everything off, make CDs, make USB drives, download things to that, just to then have to bring it physically to my office where I would then have my staff put it into the computers and upload it or download it as the case may be. And so that cuts down on a lot of frustrations as well as frees up a lot of officers' time.
Selfishly, can I ask, does this mean like CDs and thumb drives then back and forth within the court outside of your office too?
Right.
Okay, would all be transmitted through the system then as well. So
Right.
Like an attorney's office, for example,
Yeah,
when you have to come 4 or 5 times a week to pick up CDs.
I
Okay.
hope that wouldn't eliminate any jobs, however.
And one last question.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Just one thing on Lieutenant Grimshaw's letter. We get these types of letters, I think, a lot in government where it says transitions, the one sentence, with the transition to a digital submission, we will save time, money, and officers. When they say save money, like, are they just talking about like basically the gas money to like go back and forth and little cost, or is there another type of like, whatever they're using right now to kind of work with you, their system?
Right, so they do physically leave wherever they're at and come deliver it to our office.
Okay.
So it would save gas money, but also their time that's taking them off the road.
Okay. I just wanted to know with money if they meant like maybe to have their own system too, that they have to convert everything through before they come to you. So, okay, thank you.
So again, and then with law firms, we wouldn't be copying anything. We do most things by email right now anyways. But this would be another system. We would just have to not put it into an email. It would be directly emailed to the different law firms from the system. And one thing that we particularly like is because a lot of times in court, defense attorneys will not have that material with them. And with the Carpel system, I can let them know exactly when it was sent to them and when it was opened by them at their office as well. So
no more denial that they didn't receive or whatever, because you can show a date time stamp that says, yep, you got it, here's when you sent it, and this
to
is
be
when
fair, I
it was.
have that date timestamp right now
Okay.
from Filer as to when it was sent to them from our office, but never whether or not it was received or caught up in their junk mail or Carpel specifically. And that's one thing that the prosecutors really appreciated, was that you could tell when it was physically opened at that office.
So does anyone have any other questions regarding this?
Basically, you're asking just informational purposes right now, and then we're gonna look,
Be prepared.
be prepared.
Yeah.
Right, so but I didn't realize there was a big urgency until I spoke with Steve Musso this morning. So my big push over the next month until next month's meeting, when John won't be here, will be
Don or Bert,
get
I say it's gonna be all on you, buddy.
the IT departments to really speak to each other and make sure we won't have any unforeseen hiccups, and to get all your questions answered.
What is the drop dead date again for the current system?
Well,
Approximately, I know.
That it will last until the rollover,
Okay,
which could be anywhere between 3 and 5 years down the road.
okay.
I think
So we have 3 to 5 years.
maybe. But my thought was with the ARPA money and this one-time payment, and while we still do have some of that money, rather than pushing it off
Going quick.
5 years,
Yeah, going
5
quick.
years when we know it likely will not be there, to be able to ensure that we don't have that kind of shutdown that's anticipated without purchasing a system.
So Jesse has, or you have at least one question for Jesse to come back with. Hopefully you can get some more information from Steve about the storage space to get that information. Give us some time to think more about this, and if we do have any other questions, we can get them to you and hopefully get an answer moving forward.
Yep, and the best way to do that is just give my office a call.
Okay, so we good then?
I'm good for now.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone?
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Catherine.
Yeah, so the first is the animal control program discussion. So again, this is not asking for any action today, just some,
Thank you.
just some general discussion and hopefully giving myself and Sheriff Smith some direction. So just quick recap in history, the animal shelter is part right now of what in the county is budgeted under our ordinance enforcement budget. We have 2 ordinances that we currently enforce. One is the soil erosion ordinance, the other is the animal control ordinance. That shelter 4 years ago was we contracted out for shelter services. There was a contract with Huron Humane Society. The contract with Huron Humane Society covered both the care of the animals, but actually my understanding is originally was actually for doing the ordinance enforcement as well, which is something that the county can do. We also can have a civilian ordinance enforcement officer who is not a law enforcement officer. But then it changes the ability that they have to write certain kinds of tickets, and Sheriff Smith can do some further elucidation on that as needed. The animal control shelter that we run right now is at the fairgrounds. It's in a converted garage. It's not great space. We often run into issues where we have overflow or, need to roll over into one of our other buildings at the fairgrounds. We've run into issues the last year and a half that I've been here with concerns over the co-location, right? We've had the dogs and the people who camp there in the summer are not always the best of friends. I think we try to be really good about it, but dogs bark. I mean, that is the reality of having dogs, and that is not always something that is super welcome to the folks who are camping at the fairgrounds. It's also not great space. So it brings up the question of what to do with the animal control program. Really, there are kind of three options, and the sheriff and the undersheriff and our animal control enforcement officer, Officer Reed, have been having some discussions. Basically, it boils down to kind of three choices. One is we essentially keep it as it is, but increase our operation and management oversight. That program is just kind of grown organically, and it does not at this point have a good set of written operational policies and procedures. The second option would be to contract out for some level of care of the animals, particularly animals that are not part of law enforcement or ordinance enforcement. So restricting that shelter to not taking any owner surrenders or any animals that are not covered under our ordinance, our current ordinance. The third option is to contract out for all services, which is to say that the Alpena County would no longer run a shelter, that we ourselves, it's not that the services wouldn't happen, we would just be contracting out for those services through another entity. So it's kind of what is the best practice, what is the appetite for the commissioners in terms of this program, and what is going to result in the best program, not only for the county, but for our residents and for the animals that we should be looking out for as part of this ordinance. So, Sheriff Smith, if you've got anything you want to add.
No, it's something needs to be done. We need some direction on what we want to do. Set up to do it.
Question, if we go to say, contract out the house animals, the ones that are a criminal case would still stay with the, so.
That's up to you guys, and that's up to us. We actually had a discussion with the representative from MDARD. There are no differences from a licensing perspective, whether you're talking about a control shelter or whether you're talking about a protection shelter. They have to be run in the same fashion. Really, it's then making sure that as part of your contract, as part of your services, you're very clear about what you want the contract folks to do and what we would still be responsible for. There are certain restrictions, animals that come in with, that are bite risks, or that we're concerned about disease, or that are part of some kind of an investigation. Those animals can't be released for adoption. Obviously, they're not free yet to be adoptable. So they are still considered to be under the county's custody and control, but we can still contract out for their care. Or we can keep that ourselves. Like I said, you could do a hybrid model where we're still, keeping some of it ourselves and contracting out the rest, or we can contract out all of it. Or we can keep all of it.
Right, Catherine, is the ordinance on animal control lengthy? And I'll admit in due diligence, I didn't read that prior to today's meeting. I should have, but is that a lengthy ordinance, or is that?
It's 8 or 9 pages somewhere.
Yeah, it's not super long. I will say, and Chair Kozlowski was part of this conversation that we had with MDR. There were certain things that they brought up in that conversation that makes me think that we do need to revisit our ordinance. This is historical, whether you care or don't care. Historically, in the state of Michigan, the only animals that can be considered to be feral or at large are dogs, right? So those are the animals that we are required by the state of Michigan to have some kind of control or custody over, right? Other animals you can. We don't address really any other animals in our animal control ordinance other than dogs. Do we want to? Should we? Is it best practice that we address other animals? That's a whole nother question in terms of dealing with some of these issues as part of our animal control ordinance. But with the ordinance that we have, it's dogs.
Do other counties deal with the adoption of animals? Is that something common or?
It's a mixed bag. Some of them do, some of them don't.
Do we have any type of cost savings projection sheet from maybe previous discussions or committee meetings, the different options and approaches?
There's not, because one of the pieces of work that we really have not been able to do as of yet is to really get a good handle on what it costs us to run our animal control shelter and our animal ordinance enforcement department operations. If you look at the ordinance enforcement budget and you add up, or the ordinance enforcement budget, and you add up the line items, you get about $107,000 as part of the current budget. That does not take into account Officer Reed's salary, which is actually covered under the sheriff's department budget. So you would need to add in her, or at least a good portion of her salary, or of that salary for the ordinance enforcement officer. It also does not cover sheriff's department overhead as part of administering that program. But I will say, to be fair, the other thing that it doesn't take into account when you just look at that budget is that, Officer Reed has been very, very effective over the past, couple of years of bringing in donations. Those donations are not necessarily reflected in that budget as to what that is covering and what that is not covering. But part of that, and there is within the accounting hand playbook for government, we could create an animal shelter department. And that animal shelter department then would have all of your typical operational, subline items so that you could start tracking all of these expenses the way you would track the operations of any other department. But right now it's all buried in about 3 GL lines.
Is government allowed to take donations? I mean, I could go out for parts and say, hey.
Yep.
All right, interesting. I didn't know at the county level. I wanted to make sure. Okay, so $107,000 annually. I guess my only question would be, is there any way we could get a breakdown of what we've spent over the last 2 or 3 years, even like an approximate?
It's grown exponentially though over the past couple of years. I will say the last contract that the county had with Huron Humane Society for services was $17,500.
We paid $17,500 in, okay.
For services. And, in very, very offline conversations with both Huron Humane Society and with Second Chance, costs have gone up. It would be more than that if we were to contract with one of them, but certainly there have been no discussions about what kind of a cost we would be looking at if we contracted for services.
So with those costs, I mean, some of those costs would be for mandatory services, i.e. by law, and others would be for discretionary services not mandated by law, correct?
Right.
Okay.
For instance, if a dog comes into our custody and control, but it's an owner surrender, so the dog is surrendered to animal control rather than surrendered to a protection shelter. As soon as we release that dog, it's gone through screening, we've confirmed that it's adoptable. And it now, so if we were contracting for services, it now goes into the care and custody of the shelter. That's no longer our cost. That's their cost. They are responsible for the care and custody, the feeding, the whatever of that dog until it's adopted. If a dog comes into our care and custody, but it's part of a prosecution and the owner has not released the animal, that animal is ours. We're responsible for its veterinary costs and other things like that would be, I think, how that would work, would be my expectation for that contract if we were to sign one.
Any fines on that are dogs that are picked up would remain with us. Artists, it wouldn't go to a shelter that the dog was sent to the shelter and there was, $100 fine for letting your dog run around. That would stay with us. We still receive those costs.
Right, unless you were contracting out for the whole shebang, which I would not anticipate and I would not recommend. Yes, those fees would all stay with us.
I would ask the chairman, actually, would it be more beneficial to revisit this as a whole body
Well,
or to create a subcommittee?
I think we've been between the sheriff, Mary Catherine, Michelle. What?
I have numbers if there's, I have our budget numbers if there's specifics.
I mean, you can let us know, but where I was going with that is this isn't anything that we're making a decision today.
Oh, I know.
This was just kind of brought forward to us. And I know in the past that, I've actually talked to one of the shelters and there were some things that were presented at that particular time. So I do think we have a number of options that we really need to look at before we obviously make a decision. I know we've told Michelle that this isn't something that, we had a meeting of 3 weeks ago or so. This isn't something that we're making, changes today. This is, the one shelter I don't even think is even ready to go yet. So we still have months before this.
That wasn't my question, just to be clear. I wasn't suggesting to make a motion, Jay. My question was, if we're going to revisit and possibly look at whether there's a necessity to reform the ordinance in any way, is that something that you feel the body should work on as a whole, or are you looking at appointing a subcommittee to look at that?
Well, I don't know. I think we first need to figure out a kind of a direction because that'll make the ordinance probably a little bit more manageable to go whichever way we're going to go with that. Because we literally, that ordinance, we had an animal control subcommittee several years ago, and it took us like a year and a half to get finally put together on that.
What I would recommend, Mary Catherine just gave briefed on 3 courses of action, 3 options, she called it. And I wrote them down, but to have those written down, and quite frankly, Sheriff, I'd like to hear your recommendation. I don't think it's fair to say, yep, we have these 3 options. I'm just waiting for you, board, to tell us what I'm going to do. I throw it back to you, say, what would you like us to do?
He's been part of those, obviously,
Okay.
conversations, so.
Okay, I haven't. So, I'm not privy to all of that information, but at some point in time to see that what are the courses of action or the options and what's recommended. And then we could take it from there.
Well, and I don't know if you want to have any discussion today about this to give the rest of the board a little bit more insight on how you feel, or if we plan that another time. What are your thoughts?
Well, Mary Catherine pretty well covered where I'm at. We have to do what's best for the county, best for the animals, and what's the best direction. We have to get some policies written, what we're gonna do, but that is all determined on what direction we head. So at this point, I think we still have to do a lot of digging and looking at numbers and what's best. Give you a good opinion on, my opinion on what we should do.
I did pull together some materials just in the past week or so in regards to some really successful programs that do fundraising for county-operated shelters. I pulled some more stuff on some public-private relationships where there's contracting relationships between private shelters and county or, municipal organizations. So I have some more resources that I'm continuing to pull together. And, if Michelle's got some better numbers, it would be good to sit down with Michelle and kind of put those together in an actual budget format that we could look at and then, have a better sense of what that looks like as a price comparison to a flat rate. Because even if we have a flat rate, there are still costs that are going to be associated with running our program. And I think, I need to do some work with the sheriff to kind of separate what's the enforcement side of it versus what's the running the shelter side of it.
So Michelle, why don't you get the numbers to her, and that'll be a point that we can move forward with there. And then, as I said, this is a process that's going to take us some time to kind of really nail down and figure out which direction. And we'll have, I guess, the sheriff, Michelle, Mary Catherine get together, work through some of this stuff, figure out what's the best option to move forward. And then, we'll come back and revisit this.
All right. Bring back some more information. Anything else on animal?
I'm good with that. Opioids.
Yes, opioid settlement fund discussion. So this is another one where really this is a planning discussion. We finally did receive some opioid settlement funds. For those of you who've not been around, we originally got the settlement award notification in 2021. We spent all of 2022 hoping and waiting for funds that never arrived. That was partially due to a lawsuit that was filed. The lawsuit was dismissed, and we finally received funds. We actually received 2 years worth of funds through the Janssen settlement, and then we received 5 years worth of funds through one of the other settlements. So we have about about $200,000 sitting in an account right now. But that represents a couple years worth of payments. As part of the original settlement, we looked at about $60,000 over the 20 years of the settlement is what we were budgeted to receive as part of that settlement, which, as I said when I had a call earlier today, is a really frustrating amount of money because it's just enough to be significant, but not enough to feel like we can really go start a whole new program. You have in your materials the Michigan Opioid Settlement Fund Toolkit. I will tell you honestly, I feel like this toolkit was really developed for communities that were getting much more money than we are. Because there's a lot of community engagement work, a lot of, needs assessment work that I just am not sure that $60,000 a year justifies us going into. That being said, I had a really, really fantastic conversation earlier today with the gal through MAC, who they have brought on to help communities work on opioid funds. I shared with her that at least for this year, you guys had kind of earmarked our settlement funds for a hunt officer. One of the other discussions had been adult drug court, which is a diversionary and treatment court. She indicated that, it's not like you have to make a decision right now about how you're going to spend all of the funds for the whole rest of the settlement period. So if you wanted to say absolutely for this year, great, you've made your allocation, and then we're going to plan looking ahead for the next couple of years, that was a perfectly acceptable way to handle thinking about these funds. I did pull the Michigan off of the Michigan database, the dashboard for opioid. We have not had any deaths related to opioids reported in 2022, but from 2021 through 2022, they have had, and I'm sorry that Chief Edmonds just left, but they have had between 300 and 400 emergency department visits for overdoses. So, it's clear that we have a huge, there's Cynthia nodding.
I can't believe there's 0 opioid deaths, but maybe it was due to other.
They could have related them as,
Directly to opioids.
COVID.
I'm sorry.
or other, reported them as other things or comorbidities. So it's, it is absolutely clear that this has an impact on us, both from a healthcare perspective, from a law enforcement and prosecutorial perspective. So spending funds on the justice side is perfectly appropriate for the funds. But I know that in talking to her and in looking at the resources, they would really like you to spend a good chunk of them on the prevention side. That would be, the county has programs that we are involved in through the health department. I could bring in the health department to educate us all more on the treatment programs that exist in the community already that we could help, supplement to some extent. Adult drug court, I know that Judge Curtis, when we had some discussions last year, brought up adult drug court, that the funding mechanism that they have for adult drug court was not 100% certain.
I think they lost that funding this year too.
So if we wanted to look at supporting the treatment court discretionary, that piece of it, that could be something that we could do. And I think that actually budgets out to the tune of about $60,000 or $65,000 a year to run adult drug court. There are also some funds in here for, there are supplementary state funds that we could also look to help boost our $60,000. But again, I'm just kind of looking to you guys for a little direction on what you would like me to bring back to you for consideration as part of making these decisions.
Maybe it's a question for Cynthia. How's it impact on drug court? I mean, percentage wise?
I don't know that we've had that type of audit, since you all heard from Judge LaCrosse a couple, like 4 or 5 years ago now. I can tell you that the issue, and I know that Judge Black spoke to Commissioner Francisco about as well. The issue is that currently the drug court had to accept federal funding. I don't know the status of that to be absolutely certain right now. But the federal funding insisted that they follow a particular risk needs assessment. It was out of Ohio, and I don't know that it is best. I think we can all agree locally it's not best suited for rural communities like ours. So if we can get out from underneath the need for the federal funding, then we can adapt the risk needs assessment that is more suited for our particular community and thus take in more suitable individuals to our particular community. So
the federal government puts the criteria on who you could.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a particular assessment. I think nationwide, they could choose between 2 or 3 nationally renowned risk needs assessment, and our particular community went with a particular one from out of Ohio. And so if you're a drug court applicant, you not only go through a screening through my office to ensure that I don't know anything about you that should preclude you from being there, including looking through their criminal histories. But then they have to go through the assessment through Catholic Human Services to get the actual assessment or criteria that they are a high risk, high needs offender. And then the third assessment is this Ohio risk needs assessment, which is very stringent and breaks things down to a particular scoring as to whether or not they feel as though you are a high risk, high needs individual. And so what we have noticed is that high risk, high needs for Genesee County or Wayne County isn't exactly the high risk, high needs individuals we have here. So it has actually been keeping a lot of people from getting into the drug court program who would otherwise benefit. So while we will still take high risk, high needs individuals, it will be Alpena County's high risk, high needs individuals if we don't have to keep basically under the umbrella of the federal government and the red tape associated with their particular funding.
Do you know how much we get for federal funding?
I have no idea now. Back when I started it, we first wrote a grant for $350,000 in federal funding, which was to be used over the course of 5 years. After that, we could no longer re-up that particular grant. We had to apply for enhancement grants every 2 or so years after that, so it would be significantly less. But we'd have to justify using those additional funds to enhancements.
to the program. So they weren't supposed to be used to run the program. That was supposed to be something that was absorbed by the community as we proved ourselves over the first 3 years. Well, I do think the drug court proved itself in the first 3 years, but there was just no way to have the counties completely fund the drug court throughout that time. So we'd have to work in little tweaks of enhancements. And to be fair, there's still state funding, I think, that they get every single year. But right now, I know they're down a compliance officer, which is extremely necessary. It's somebody who goes out to ensure these individuals are home at curfew, can do drug testing on site at their homes, go through their homes to make sure they don't have anything in their homes they're not supposed to have. So those are all things that our particular drug court is supposed to be providing to participants that they can just not do at the level they're doing right now without full funding for that.
Long story short, right?
Well, it's very, it's a very important program.
Yep.
And so leaving out any little details, you don't have the full program unless you have, all the.
Well, we probably need to know that, how much we're truly getting from federal government,
For,
drug court.
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I mean, as Cynthia mentioned, I think that grant is gone. The Amy Delinsky, who I had the meeting with earlier today through MAC, sent me a list of some other opportunities in the criminal legal space that we could hopefully tie in with. There is an adult treatment court discretionary grant program through the Michigan courts. But I don't know if this is something that they have already explored or not. I would have to have some time to work with them. There's also a site, and this is like, how big do you want to make this discussion, right? Because we have our juvenile program that we've been discussing, and that had a lot of treatment things that would be a part of it if we were going to, really dive into that space rather than just a small expansion for some hold beds. There's good grant programs to help with comprehensive opioid stimulant and substance abuse for a site-based program. Or do we hook in with what the Department of Health and Human Services is already working on in terms of stuff that's available here? If we gave them an extra $10,000 or $15,000 for their programs, is that what's going to make the most impact? So I'm just kind of looking for, how would you guys like to proceed in terms of getting input? Or do you just want to say, nope, we're just going to be on the criminal legal side?
I feel that, it'd be best used if we can impact. I know we're using it for the hunt officer. The problem with that is that you're not really, I guess, you're solving the problem at the particular moment, but you're not long-term fixing the problem. So I would welcome other opportunities or other places that we could utilize those resources that could be impactful for the community. Because that was the whole intention, I thought, of this whole settlement. For me, it wasn't, let's get, a whole bunch of money for an opioid settlement and just spend it the way we want to. I think it should be used how it's going to help our community.
I think it must be used that way.
Correct. There are restrictions. I mean, the justice legal side, the enforcement legal side is one piece of
Yeah,
addressing,
that's what I
but
mean
then
by-
there's the treatment and
To me,
prevention side.
if we give it to the hunt officer to go arrest the person that is using opioids or whatever, it doesn't really solve the problem. It
Correct,
solves the problem temporarily, but I feel like we should find a way that could be better suited to help eliminate the need.
Sure. Well, I heard Mary Kaplan in her briefing that she said, the funding is for prevention efforts.
Yeah.
And I mean, although, the hunt officer, he's on the enforcement side, I'm not sure how much prevention other than,
Well, he's
I'm
preventing
not
you-
saying that that's not important, but from a drug perspective, an opioid settlement perspective, I'm saying we should fund the hunt officer, don't get me wrong. But I think if we focus on the prevention efforts, the drug court and the other agencies through this community that work towards that goal and help those that are there towards prevention in the future. I mean, I think that fits the bill for, and how successful it is. Well, I guess until we hear that kind of data. Say again?
There's three prongs: prevention, rehabilitation, and enforcement.
Sure,
And it's got to figure out a way to
sure.
meet all that.
Sure. And but I'm hearing from this particular pot of money, though, that's most specifically focused on prevention. Not saying that enforcement isn't important, Sheriff. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just looking at this pot of money here.
Sure.
Right.
Just real, I mean, and we brought this up, I think, last time when we did talk about the hunt officer. And again, not that I'm opposed to that. I actually think the hunt team does a good job, but the problem is we have a hunt officer that'll be unemployed when we run out of the money. So we basically hired somebody for a short-term fix for a year or two until we can't afford that. We're already working with not a great budget, but how do we pay for that position after the fact? And so when we hire people, we have to realize that, 60,000, 70,000 may cover them for this year, but then what?
Right. And to be fair, I don't think you guys have actually brought on a hunt officer yet. She had a question, and I apologize, Sheriff, I should have checked with you beforehand. Are you in the jail right now with the community-based services? Are we providing or doing any kind of medication treatment for folks who are addicted in the jail right now?
We are.
Okay, because that was certainly one thing that she brought up as a really important service that if we weren't funding, to definitely think about funding. She talked about school-based prevention, and I thought that was a really nice opportunity. We do have, this school liaison officer that we collaborate with the city on, that there might be some programs there that we could work on, because this is the amount of money that you actually, I think, could impact a program like that. So I'm just, again, kind of throwing out ideas, but looking at what you guys want back.
If I could, Sheriff, and the county's responsible for the cost of those medications? Or,
Well, part of it's part of our contract with our medical provider.
okay.
But as far as, I know that, this would be better for Christina to answer, but I know they do injections for like methadone or something. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I know we pay, I think the county is probably picking up a big portion of it, to be honest with you, through our provider.
I thought so, because I think when there's like regular prescriptions, if you have an inmate who requires insulin.
And I can definitely find the exact answer for you and let you know, and we'll do that.
I know, I have asked in the past for the what is it, IHS for the medical, the pharmaceutical stuff. But yeah, we do provide, I know we have provided. At one point, I got a copy of all the drugs with all their names taken off, but what type of drugs? So if they're if they're on a prescription drug, we continue to pay for that.
Yeah. Because once they come in, I think it's a certain amount of time and then they're off Medicaid and Medicare and all that, and we're on the county dime.
Right. And I guess this last question will be more for Cynthia. Cynthia, you said there's somebody who does enforcement to make sure that people are home on time, that they can do the drug testing. Is that somebody that we have right now and we just don't have the funds to make them full-time, or we don't have that position at all?
No, that was retired trooper Tim Hose, and he, can't remember when he stopped working for them, but they have not filled the position.
Was that a full-time position, or was it like an as needed, kind of like, if they service for a day or two a week, you would pay
It was
them?
pretty consistently part-time. I think he was there half a day.
Okay. What was roughly, can I ask, do you remember the cost?
No, I
Sorry.
that was not into the finances at that time.
No worries.
Well, I think our discussion is we'd look to move or find a prevention solution moving forward. Is that what I'm hearing?
But I would advocate.
So I don't know what that involves.
I will reach out to Department of Health and Human Services, our DHD4, and talk to them about what is already offered in the community and what they might recommend. And then I can also, I know there's a prevention coalition group in this region as well. So I will reach out to both of those and see if I can get some presentation materials to come back to you guys. Partners in Prevention, is that the coalition? Okay.
Any other questions regarding the opioids, or we'll move on? So, moving on to the attorney contract agreement amendment.
Hopefully, this is a very quick discussion. So we have an attorney contract that is good through the end of this year. We have had one of the attorneys who's involved with that contract, Katie Conklin, give us notice that she is going to be withdrawing from that contract. The question really at this point is, do we rebid the whole contract, or do I just post to replace her in that contract through the end of the year? We have had 2 people who have reached out who are interested, but I feel like we at least need to make a posting that it's available and whoever might be interested to come back for a recommendation.
We have 2 people. I'm not opposed to the posting. I know when Elsa Wallace left, she actually found somebody for the last 5 months of her contract or whatever it was. So if Katie's leaving, you have 2 people that are interested. I don't know, I mean, do we need to post it? If you know the 2 people that have come forward to say that they're interested in doing it.
I mean, it is a contract with the county. I guess I feel like for transparency purposes, you don't have to post it for very long. I mean, we can put out a posting, for a week or something to say, hey, we've got an opening. Anyone who might be interested, let us know.
Yeah.
Because at this point, the only people who know are the people who, Katie might have told or who have heard, might have mentioned it.
I would suggest that you post it, whatever, for a week or 2 at most, and we'll put it on our county website, and then at least everybody has an opportunity, and then we can move forward with that. I was wondering, well, actually 2 things. Well, one thing, a big deal, but the first thing that jumped out at me this time was when I read the top of the contract, it was Misha Dan or something like that. What was it? Top of the contract says Misha, MICIDGA.
Oh, yes. That is a glaring typo now that you have pointed it out to me. Yes.
It just jumped right out of me this time when I saw it, so.
All right, thank you.
But, yeah, when I first went through this, I'm like, why are we getting this again now? Because this goes through the end of the year. But that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay.
I concur with the posting for the minimum amount of time, just for transparency purposes.
Is everybody else good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we need a motion on that, or?
That would be good. Thank you.
Okay. So could I have a motion?
I would move that we should post for the minimum amount of required time, the vacancy to the contract, and then be able to make a decision thereafter to include the 2 applicants that are already interested.
Second that motion.
Okay. Any discussion?
Just a quick question. Once I have any responses, do you want me to come back to you guys with a recommendation about who should fill in? Do you want me to just go ahead and fill it? What's your preference?
When does Katie?
She gave us 60 days.
So did she just give it, or?
It was about
So we have-
a week and a half ago.
Okay. I don't know, would you,
Probably come back.
you guys want to come back? Okay, bring.
Bring a recommendation back. Okay.
So we have the motion and the second, or the support. Any further discussion? If not, favor?
All right.
Aye. Against? Okay. And then we're finally back to the MIDC grant that was mentioned earlier.
Yes. So as was mentioned by Mr. Pfeiffer, this is a contract that really, for lots of reasons, he really was not a part of the discussion that I had with our office here in town in regards to a request that they have made to MIDC to amend their grant. As Bill mentioned, this would not in any way impact the amount of the grant that is our responsibility. The county match stays exactly the same. This is just an increase in the amount of money that MIDC would be granting to Alpena County. And it's based on the fact that they are anticipating much higher costs with the three big prosecutions coming up here very shortly. Two. So that I had a very good meeting with Barb from the state of Michigan with the MIDC. Assuming that they approve it, we would just need to accept the additional or the expanded grant dollar amount.
Okay. Have you guys looked at it? From what I read, based on what has been told to us, this isn't going to cost the county any additional money. So to me, this is a pretty much no-brainer on this one.
Hey, Chairman, can I chime in just for a half second?
Sure.
Yeah, they just actually just emailed me the grant for county approval. And it said the email that I got at about 5:30 said that they had approved it. And they needed it to be approved on the county level within 14 days of today.
Oh, perfect timing.
They have approved it.
Okay. Okay. We got a motion by Commissioner Osmer.
I'll support.
Support by Commissioner Francisco. Any further discussion? It isn't costing us additional money, so we can just roll, or not roll call, but just all those in favor? Aye. Against? Okay. It was passed. Looks like who's going to be here to talk about this?
Unless you have any questions, these are really just to receive and file.
Okay.
Motion to accept all three. Right, there's two.
Well,
No, three.
Receive and file, yeah.
The ambulance fund, the medical examiner's monthly report, and the Veterans Affairs Office monthly report.
And just blankets. Easier.
discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then what about the letter, the last letter from?
I can brief on that. Yeah, I can brief on that. So in the past, because Alcona County has not had a Veterans Service Officer, and this has been way back, I mean, to when Dan Cox was here, there was an agreement with an understanding that Alpena would help with the Alcona County veterans to complete and fill out their applications and then file them to the state of Michigan for the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund. Well, Alcona County now has their own VSO. And so the board on their organizational meeting in January voted to change what was the unwritten agreement. Basically, Alcona County VSO will help Alcona County veterans complete their applications for the Veterans Trust Fund, and Alpena will help them with the submission to the MVTF for funding is really all that is.
Okay. So, and this is just informational, so we don't have to do anything with this.
That's just an FYI for everybody.
Does anyone have any questions on anything that we've discussed? If not, I think it looks like it's that time.
I'll make a motion. Aaron?
Motion.
Well, do we need a motion to amend number 15? Because we have the 16th as the next meeting date.
Oh,
You change that to the,
Informational, we'll get it changed.
okay, I didn't know if you needed action. Okay.
okay, so I have a motion to adjourn. Second, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.